Hi, this is Chris from abarabub.com, and today we're focusing on flavored simple syrup. So stay tuned as I explore a few different ways and show you the best results. There's a ton of videos out there online that'll teach you how to make a flavored simple syrup. I highly recommend watching them just to get some ideas for flavor combinations and potential cocktail ideas that might be new to you. But this video is not going to be focusing on how to make a flavored simple syrup. You'll definitely learn that process, but this video is going to be focusing on when to add your ingredients to your simple syrup. And this has always been a question that I've had, so I'm really excited to have done this experiment and kind of gather some information. So in these 4 glasses are exactly the same thing. The amount of mint is held constant at 20 grams, and the simple syrup recipe is exactly the same, 1 to 1. 1 cup sugar, 1 cup water. So there's no variation as far as that goes. The only variation between each one of these glasses is when I added the mint to the simple syrup. So we'll take a look at a slide that we made. It'll kind of break this down a little easier, make it a little easier to understand. So here's our slide on simple syrup extraction and mint infusion. So in the center there, the blue line running through the center of the slide represents our timeline. On the very left there, time equals 0, that's when the simple syrup started to simmer. The midpoint is 5 minutes when I remove the simple syrup from heat, and the right hand point is time equals 10 minutes. And all 3 experiments were finished at the 10-minute marker. Now I tried to keep the amount of time that the mint was in contact with the simple syrup constant, so each one were exposed to simple syrup for 5 minutes. The simple syrup was made the exact same way, so let it simmer for 5 minutes. Then the only variable that we're testing now is when we added the mint to the simple syrup. So focusing on test number 1, the green box kind of outlines the time frame of when the experiment was started. So in this one here, the mint was added to the simple syrup the minute it started to simmer. It was allowed to simmer in the simple syrup as well for 5 minutes. And at the 5-minute marker, I removed both the simple syrup from the heat, and I also removed the mint from the simple syrup, so it only had 5 minutes exposure. Now in test number 2, I allowed the simple syrup to boil for about 2.5 minutes, and then I added the mint in there. And it was only exposed to the boiling or simmering simple syrup for about 2.5 minutes. And then at the 5-minute marker, I removed the simple syrup from the heat. It still allowed the mint to steep in the simple syrup mixture for another 2.5 minutes. So at the 7.5-minute marker is when I removed the mint from the simple syrup. Now in test number 3, I added the mint when I removed the simple syrup from the heat, and I allowed it to steep as I put a T for 5 additional minutes. And at the 10-minute marker is when I removed my mint from the simple syrup. Now the last test that we did was a experiment or a test in cold extraction. So what I did is I allowed the simple syrup to completely cool. Put it in the fridge for half an hour until it got to pretty cold temperature, and then I added the mint and allowed it to sit in the simple syrup for about 3 days to try and get as much extraction out of it as possible. Now here you can see the timelines kind of superimposed upon each other just to get a better understanding or a better visualization of the time frames that we ran the tests at. Last year for Christmas, my wife got me an introduction to brewing class, and I was really excited about it because, well, first of all, I love beer, and second of all, it's definitely aligned with what we do of flavor building and cocktail design. So I took some information that directly correlates with simple syrups that I'd like to share with you guys. Now, if any of you are home brewers or even passionate cooks, you know that once you put an ingredient with heat, the flavor extraction begins. And the longer you leave it in there, the deeper that flavor is going to be. And that definitely has a direct influence on the simple syrups and what we notice as well. So in test number 1 here, the first one, it was the deepest extraction of mint flavor. Almost overdone, actually. So you have this deep, dark, woody expression of mint, and it almost goes into the bitter realm of it as well. It's not a bad thing, but just keep that in mind when you're building your cocktails that it has a much stronger flavor. Now, test number 2 actually bridges the gap between number 1 and number 3, which makes a lot of sense. So you have a nice extraction of mint, as you did in the first one, but you don't have the bitter notes that we talked about. It also preserves a lot of the floral qualities that we're going to talk about in number 3. And when I first tasted it, it reminded me exactly of Wrigley's Spearmint Gum when I was a kid. So it's a flavor that we're all very familiar with, and we have a mental picture in our head of what that actually is. Now the third one here is very light. The focus of this simple syrup is much more floral, much lighter, much more elegant. You don't get the deep extraction that you get from either 1 or from number 2. And the focus, like I already said, is very, very much floral and light. Now, this last one here was an experiment in cold extraction. So what I did is it just brought the temperature all the way down to fridge temperature, and then I added the mint and let it sit in there for 3 days, trying to extract the flavor out in the refrigerator. And it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's very light. The mint is not really noticeable. So I'd recommend probably steering away from that for what we do. The minute we add any spirit or any kind of liqueur or mixer to it, it's going to get completely lost, and you're not going to taste much of the mint at all. So these are the results I have for you guys, and I encourage you to do something similar, when you're designing your cocktails. And this is some of the details that really kind of hone your skills and make your cocktails go from really good to great. So I hope you guys have a great shift. Stay tuned, and I'm excited to bring some more information for you very soon. So cheers. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Google+, or visit us at abarabove.com. I forgot where I started from.